You're tuning into the podcast series We Talk Cyber with Monica, your platform for engaging discussions and expert opinions on all things cyber. For more information, check out monicatalkcyber.com, and let's hop right into today's episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of We Talk Cyber with Monica. This is your host Monica Verma, and I'm back with yet another fantastic episode. We'll be talking today about hackers' view on emerging technologies and threat landscape, and we'll be talking with Carsten from Transcendent Group. Hi Carsten, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi Monica, I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you. Would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Carsten Maartmann-Moe. I am the CEO of Transcendent Group in Norway. We are a small GRC consultancy firm, and I have a background as an ethical hacker, worked for that as most of my career. And I'm really looking forward to talk to you about all these exciting new technology that we surround us with and my perspective on that technology as a hacker. It's a really wide subject, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Before we start, let's just talk about defining the term hacker and differentiating between an ethical hacker and a non-ethical hacker.
Yeah, so from a security perspective, a hacker's always been, in the old school internet jargon, it was more of somebody that worked within technical IT infrastructure. It could be a sysadmin, it could be a coder. In modern terminology, it's often being used as a reference of people that actually breaks into software or hardware. So that's more the ethical hacker. I have a background in the ethical hacking part of the business, but I think when we talk about emerging tech, I think it makes sense to talk about hackers in the broader sense, actually in the old sense of the word, people working with technology. And the reason why is a lot of the emerging tech is actually made by people which I would assume identify themselves as hackers. Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook is one of them. So I think we can talk about it from a broader sense, but me and my experience is mostly from the ethical hacking side, and I think that will probably color some of the stuff I'll talk about.
Fantastic. So let's start with, we talked a bit about now hackers, and you define, okay, what a hacker is, a broad definition. Let's take it from there. What are the biggest challenges, in your opinion, in terms of the emerging technologies that we have, and also the way the threat landscape is changing?
Well, I think if you look at all the tech that's happening around us now, with the perspective of a hacker, you're one part excited and you're one part scared because it's just growing in an immense tempo, and it has been since the internet was conceived, and it's basically everywhere, and it's more powerful than before. We collect more data on people. There's more tech around us. The tech that we're actually surrounding us with is going through sort of a Cambrian explosion, which is basically when it's a terminology from biology, when the fossil record shows up an extreme explosion in more advanced life forms on Earth, and tech is sort of going through the same thing because we're going from a world where software existed in the beginning offline and then online, and it was mostly web pages and apps and ports and services. Now it's robots, it's AI, it's no code applications, it's cloud, it's all this technology, and it's IoT devices in our home, and we're enabling all this tech to actually sense and sort of reason about the world around it. And that is definitely a change from the old school use of tech, where tech mostly was applications that we use. Now we suddenly have tech that moves around us and interact with us, not only in the digital plane, but also in the cyber plane. And that, from a hacker perspective, that's very interesting because as a hacker, or an ethical hacker at least, one of the things that we were interested in when we try to break into stuff, if it's an application or if it's a car, we try to map out its attack surface, which is basically ways we can interact with the application or car or whatever it is we're trying to break into, because all of those points that we can interact with it is potential places where there may exist vulnerabilities. And the old school, when I was young and before the internet, that interaction was floppy disks. Hence, vulnerabilities and viruses existed on floppy disks. That's the first time I got a computer virus, was through floppy disk that I put into a public terminal at a library where I was living. And then when the internet came, and suddenly viruses and worms existed online. And now we're sort of moving towards a phase where we're not only are the internet there, and there's been a massive explosion in internet services, but we also have a physical plane where we can interact with technology, and that combined makes the attack surface a lot larger and different than it used to be before. So it's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting from a hacker's perspective, because you normally would like to sort of try to, what you're trying to do is to inject errors into the technology to make it do something it's not designed to do. It's basically what you're trying to do as an ethical hacker. And suddenly you can also try to manipulate the physical environment around the robot to try to make it to do stuff that it's not supposed to do. And it's a different type of potential hacking than what we've seen thus far.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very interesting from a hacker's perspective. But also, I think, because I'm not pessimistic, I think that we shouldn't panic. I think in large, the tech explosion that we're seeing around us is positive for security. I mean, a lot of the a lot of the large breaches are, there's been the couple, the last 10 years, not been because of emerging tech. It's usually because of legacy tech, to be honest, tech that has been forgotten, not patched, not updated. It's not always like that, but a lot of the stuff that we see when we do penetration tests, so meaning when our clients hire us to break into stuff, is due to misconfigurations or legacy software just coexisting with the new stuff. So I think in general, new stuff is good for security, but the problem is the explosion in attack surface that
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing.
So you say a very important point here is that a lot of the problems that we're facing today is also because of the legacy tech. We
Yeah.
haven't fixed the problems that we have in the legacy, but at the same time, we are now coming with more emerging new technologies, and they are now colliding with each other, right? Making it even more complex because we haven't fixed what we have screwed up so far, if I can
Right.
say it so. So, how have you seen the threat landscape change over the last, let's say, a decade?
I'd say the threats have not changed themselves. I think it's been more of an awakening for everybody to see them manifest themselves in real breaches. I think we have had some more transparency to the big breaches that we've seen, but I don't think necessarily the threat, at least not the threat actors, have changed a lot. They've always been nation states, and they've always been criminal gangs. They've always been 16 years old boys and girls in their in their bedroom hacking away at some piece of tech that they've seen online. So I don't think that has changed a lot, but what's changed is the potential impact of those breaches, because we now have very large tech companies that control a lot of the stuff that we do online, and if you breach Twitter, then suddenly you do have access to Barack Obama's DMs. And if you breach Facebook, then suddenly you can potentially breach a lot of people. So the scale of the incidents have gone up, but I don't think the threat actors have changed. Of course, the threat actors are sort of, they're always exploiting the technology that is there. So if we surround us with more technology, you bet that the threat actors will look at that technology as well. But I don't think the actors have changed a lot. It's just that they may have been slightly professionalized, and we've gotten marginally better at exposing them and attributing stuff to them, but we're still a long way from where we should be when it comes to attribution, for instance, which is a great problem in at least international cybersecurity, that people are not held accountable for breaches, and therefore breaches happen.
Right. So, from a business perspective, what is the recommendations you can give to the businesses? Where should they start looking? What is what are the most important questions they should be asking to better protect themselves from these adversaries, to better secure the technologies that they're using for their businesses, for the employees, for their customers, and
Mm.
also to be better positioned as a better defense mechanism, a better defending themselves from the cyber attacks? What would be your recommendations?
Well, I think that if you're in the business of creating a product or exposing something online, which I think most businesses are, I think you should ask yourself, if you're producing something new, you should ask yourself, how can this piece of tech that I'm introducing be misused, and what is it, how can it be broken? Which is basically the same thing that we often ask ourselves when we do ethical hacking engagements, because. And if you don't have that competency yourself, you should get somebody internally to have a look at it from an attacker's perspective, because I think that a lot of businesses are counting on somebody else have done that. So if you're building an IoT device, you're counting that the people that shipped you the hardware and base OS have done their security job. But I'll let you know they haven't done the security job unless you ask them and check with them, because they are incentivized to build cheap hardware as possible. And if you buy it from somewhere else, you can bet you that they've spent as little money as possible on security. It's often, at least our viewpoint on this when we look at, for instance, hardware components. So without the proper view on your value chain and the actual security that yourself is developing on top of that value chain, you put yourself in a high risk position when it comes to breaches. And the other thing I think is important is, and this is a larger question, but I think that we as security professionals should in increasing manner engage ourselves in policy making, because a lot of the policies and the regulations that are out there are often somewhat misguided and are not really helping security researchers and others to help work to create better security out there. And I think that we as a community should engage ourselves. And it's maybe not the most sexy part of security. I mean, security regulations and governance, but it's an important part, because that's the way changes happen on a larger scale. I don't think you can expect the vendors to take greater security responsibility without regulation, because it's just not profitable. And the businesses are mostly there, at least the public ones, to maximize the profits for the shareholders. And security in that context does not make sense. And the same goes for people, by the way. I mean, security for people, teaching them to be resistant to social engineering is an uphill battle, because it doesn't make sense for me as a person to go through all these security hoops. I'm hired to do my job, not do security. So it's difficult, and it's difficult realization for a lot of cyber people to think about. That yes, I think we have actually had to regulate and work with international community to regulate security in all the tech that we surround us with. And I have a last point as well. I think that in general, I think that businesses can be a lot smarter when it comes to security. I see a lot of businesses just hiring manpower, if it's consultants or hires, to tackle problems that could be tackled with a few smart guys with coding and scripting skills and some good tools. So I think that in general, we should try to push push as much responsibility as possible towards the coders and the maintainers out there. And in a new world, everything is DevOps anyway, so it's the same team. So they should have responsible for security, not some sort of large scale security team. And I think a lot of businesses can actually save money on this because it makes the people responsible for that part of the development job as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was 3 points. I think I see you asked for one, but
The more the better, because the question really comes, and you touched a very good point of the policies, because with the emerging technologies, with the legacy that we already have, with the aspects of hacking and checking what attack surface there are, and as you said, also testing these products when you develop new products and security products and so on, it's still difficult for businesses sometimes to understand, as you say, not investing too much money in security. But that, from a CEO perspective, from a business owner perspective, that makes sense. I would want to use the least money possible to get the best results, right? I
yeah.
would not want to spend more money than is actually required at all. And then there comes the point of risk management, understanding what the risks are and where the risk lies. So from, let's say, from a security governance perspective of a security leader, right? Because a
Yeah.
CEO is not necessarily equipped in understanding security to the extent that the
Nope.
security leader does, right? And I think it's also probably unfair to expect that of CEOs. How do you believe, or what are the key ways in which a security leader of an organization can help CEOs in making such decisions to ensure that they are better postured while still not completely bankrupting the company?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think it's probably a bit unfair to the CEOs out there to say that they only want to maximize the profit of the companies, because I think in reality most CEOs, at least the responsible ones, would like to spend enough money on security, and enough meaning, enough money to keep you out of harm's way, but still not more than exactly that amount. So I think that most CEOs would be happy to spend money on security. I think that the biggest problem with for the CISO, for instance, is to explain, how much is that amount. And if you're a security leader in a company, you want to do enough, and it's often difficult to find that exact moment when you feel like, yeah, I think we have pretty good control. But it is an important sort of state to get to, because it's not sustainable to add on more and more security people, more and more security tools in the long run. Even though the decision makers that are maybe above you, may not understand the core tenets of security, they do understand economics, and at some point they will challenge you. And if you can't come up with a good answer why we're spending all this money on security, you're not in a good place. So I think trying to be rational as a security leader and think about what are the, I mean, it always starts with a risk assessment. It's pretty boring, but it always starts there. But try to be a bit smart about what you secure first, and try to, at least if you're producing something, I mean, your product and your that's what's generating money into the company. Maybe you start there, and try to. It's a continuous, it's continuous working in security. You can't stop there, but you can sort of continuously improve your both internal and product security stance over time. But I think a lot of people think that they have to have a lot of people, and I think that security and that a company must be good at security because it has X number of people compared to the number of people employed, and I don't think that's a good metric at all. I think you should probably talk more about coverage in terms of where we're comfortable with the security in the company. It could be business divisions, or it could be parts of software, and it could be also highlighting places where you're uncertain about our security stance, and that would be a good way to communicate where you need investments and where you're comfortable. But it's difficult. I mean, the security leader role is extremely difficult because you have to balance the financial and cost perspective with security, and traditionally security has been not prioritized. I feel like that has changed a bit. So now the problem is more, how do we do this in a smart way? And I think emerging tech and AI can play, a huge role in it. And that's the positive side of emerging tech. You have a lot of interesting AI and machine learning and automation software coming up that tries to solve different sort of, security problems, everything from passwords to security monitoring. They're not quite there yet.
So, what are your predictions for the next 5 years, as you're saying, in terms of emerging technology and AI and all these things that can help in terms of security?
Yeah, it's always difficult, but I think that maybe we tend to overestimate the short-term impact of emerging tech, and underestimate the long-term impact. I think the long-term impact is going to be profound, not only for cyber, but in general for society. And I think that hence that cyber will play a larger role in the upcoming not only tech decisions but political decisions. I mean, we see pre-stages of that already with everything from the Cambridge Analytica case with regards to the U.S. election and other stuff where we have a very interesting sort of perfect storm of a growing attack surface and a lot of technology optimism, but also some, I would say, warning shots about the potential dark sides, so to say, of technology, where technology plays a role in propaganda and in manipulation and in fake news. So it's difficult to say, but I think that within 10 years we will have a whole new field of cybersecurity coupled with policy and AI, robotics, and ethics, maybe also thrown into the bunch, because I think that we're on our way to a world where automation and robots will be a large part of our day-to-day work, and a large part of society. And that will be interesting because, as sort of, if I'm thinking out of the box, I'm not sure it's going to be like this, but if you think about it, but now we're sort of trying to replace parts of what we're doing as humans with robots and AI and algorithms. So although changing and removing some parts of that human weakness from is good for security, the sheer scale and speed of it all, it creates new challenges, because suddenly, I mean, a lot of the big breaches in banks, for instance, that you don't hear about, has been prevented because there is slowness in the financial system, for instance. Money does not go out of your account immediately. I mean, it looks like that in your online banking, but it does not go out immediately. There's checks and balances to stuff. But as you automate and create, let's say, automated AI-powered, machine learning-powered insurance claims, for instance, then you take out those human checks and balances out of the equation, and things move suddenly at a better speed, a larger speed. So, the difference between a machine and a human in this case is that if you fool a human being to transfer money to you, for instance, or if you fool insurance company to pay out some insurance sum to you, you fool them once. But once you learn how to fool a machine or an algorithm, you could potentially fool them a lot of times really quickly and affect a lot of people really quickly. So as we are putting machines, a whole other scale,
definitely
globally.
A larger scale, correct?
Yeah, so I think that's as I think security might be improved by automation and in general is improving, I think that we will probably see maybe fewer incidents. I don't know about that, but maybe fewer incidents, but at least larger in terms of impact, both because of the speed and the size of everything, but also because of the fact that these algorithms are suddenly interacting with us in the physical world, not only online. So that will be very, very interesting to see where, but my prediction is that if the people working with automated driving or unsupervised production units and stuff like that, if they succeed, we'll have a whole new range of cybersecurity issues to tackle, and that will be very, very interesting.
Right. And there are the other aspect or the other side of it as well, that the automation will be also used by the adversaries to be better
Yes,
at their game. I mean,
yes,
this
it's an arms
technology
race.
is always exactly, it's arms race, right? And then the other aspects, as you said, of the ethics. I totally agree. I think the ethics part will be even more important, even more critical. I mean, it is a key, it's an important part even today, but it'll be more challenging for the years to come, and we will have to be discussing ethics on the table in much more clearer terms and what these means. We have already started discussions about ethics in the AI, but as you said, the rules, the regulations framework to ensure that these are not violated will be quite critical for the years to come.
Yeah, and it's very difficult. I mean, to discuss ethics within AI. AI in itself is a very complex subject, which I am in no way an expert on, by the way. And I feel I hear myself sometimes talking about AI like I know know how it works. I'm fairly technical. So the challenge there is to make policymakers understand what AI is and isn't, and there's a lot of confusion out there about AI, machine learning, and unsupervised, supervised. It's all these terms that the community is using is not. People don't understand in reality how, for instance, machine learning work at a good level, and that's a problem in itself, because how can you make good policies if you don't understand how stuff works? So we have a lot of learning to do,
A
both
lot of work
myself
to do.
and yeah.
Fantastic. I think we will have interesting roles also in the future. So, no time soon, it's getting any less interesting.
Yeah,
Fantastic, Carsten. Would you like to just maybe sum up by giving some recommended reading for the audience?
sure. I think that in extension of what we were talking about just now, I think that one book I would recommend is a book called Weapons of Math Destruction. It's a very interesting book if you're concerned, or even if you're not concerned, about the challenges with data and automation and algorithms taking decisions on part of humans. You may disagree or agree with the conclusions, but it's sort of a eye opener for people, I think, when it comes to what can be done with data. I think it's very, very interesting to see how data can be used, and how data quality and bias in that data can sometimes make decisions that are maybe not wanted, or unethical, you may say, depending on what sort of moral and ethical framework you you operate within. So that's a very interesting book. There's a lot of good hacker books out there as well. The first one I read was The Cuckoo's Egg by Cliff Stoll, which is very interesting if you want to read a mix of sysadmin stories from before the millennia, and how he tracked down hackers by using some very fairly old school models, but that's still relevant, which is very interesting to me, at least, that it's still relevant. So
Fantastic.
those are some books I would recommend. Get off the internet and read a book.
Uh-huh. Lovely. Thank you so much, Carsten. It was lovely having you on the podcast episode today. Amazing conversation and discussions, and I can fairly certainly say that yes, we will be needing ethical hackers for the years to come to help
Yes.
us with the emerging technologies and, well, the society in general.
Thank you, Monica. Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you. So I'll be signing off now. That was today's episode of We Talk Cyber with Monica. This is your host, Monica, and I'll be back with more amazing episodes, amazing discussions, and fantastic guests. So continue tuning in, and until then, take care and stay safe. Thanks for tuning in to We Talk Cyber with Monica. Do not forget to subscribe to We Talk Cyber in your favorite podcast app and YouTube channel, Monica Talk Cyber. Take care and continue tuning in.